Both parties deprecated war, but one of them would make war rather than let the nation survive, and the other would accept war rather than let it perish. And the war came. Abraham Lincoln, 1865. Considering such, the question then that must be asked is how did the war come about? The one question that has left many esteemed intellectuals, including Lincoln himself, to peruse only empty thought. Some say it was due to sectionalism. Some say slavery. Some say it was pure jealousy and hatred ripening within the heart of the new American nation and the heart of its inhabitants. All of these can be seen in the events to be discussed, the compromises made, the trust broken, the lives lost as a result.
It has been said that sectional tensions began to arise prior to the mid-19th century. However, they were not as prevalent as in events such as the Missouri Compromise of 1820. This particular compromise placed a boundary line between northern free states and the southern slave states, quite frankly dividing the nation in two. It served a purpose of countering the expansion of slavery into the new western territories, but ultimately failed to resolve any conflict, including the strife between the North and South, which would soon lead to bloodshed.
The Compromise of 1850 was another event in American history that only accentuated sectional tensions between the North and the South. Clay's omnibus compromise was done away with as prominent, corrupt politicians like Stephen Douglas arose with only self-interest in mind. As a result of the following compromise, California became a free state, a strict Fugitive Slave Act was passed, and the rest, including the decision of slavery, was left to territorial government interests. It was a seemingly positive change, and most people approved it at the time, although it quickly became dangerous as principles crumpled and sections struggled for power.
Concerning the Kansas-Nebraska Act of 1854, Stephen A. Douglas, in response to arguments over the Transcontinental Railroad, introduced a bill that not only divided the Nebraska Territory in two, but also established popular sovereignty and repealed the Missouri Compromise. The controversial decision alone divided and nearly destroyed the Whig and Democratic parties, but also led to the emergence of the Republican Party, which also claimed the name Anti-Nebraska.
This event spiraled from the Kansas-Nebraska Act passed in 1854. In the spring of 1855, pro-slavery politicians swarmed to the state and took control of the territorial government there. Free staters, outraged, refused to accept the new government and instead made their own, thus provoking pro-slavery forces, which attacked the opposition, burning their town, located in Lawrence, to the ground. With this come retribution in the figure John Brown, who, in Pottawatomie Massacre of 1856, mutilated bodies of pro-slavery men to send a message to the surrounding area, a message that was both received and interpreted.
In John Brown's raid on Harper's Ferry, Virginia, the anti-slavery zealot attempted to seize a federal arsenal in hopes of inciting a slave insurrection. Convinced he was on a mission from God to purge the nation of slavery, Brown was captured and hanged with all confidence in his work that he had done. The North revered him as a hero and as a martyr. The South saw him as a terrorist and as a sign they were no longer safe within the Union. At this point, they were convinced they were better off apart from him.
With the election of Abraham Lincoln in 1860 came the undoing of the Union. When the South witnessed a victory for anti-slavery forces, they decided they no longer shared common ground with the North, so they no longer needed to be part of that Union. Months after Lincoln's inauguration, Southern states began to secede, South Carolina at the head of the disunion, and Confederate States of America.
On April 12, 1861, Confederate warships turned back Lincoln's supply convoy to Fort Sumter and began to bombard the outpost. The garrison surrendered 2 days later, marking the start of the Civil War.
After 4 relentless and bloody years, the Civil War came to an end with Robert E. Lee's and the Confederacy's surrender in 1865. The victory for Lincoln indicated the preservation of the Union, but unfortunately did not indicate a cordial unison within it. The sectional tensions that had caused the war continued even after, perhaps even more bitterly, as can be seen in Lincoln's assassination in 1865 at the war's end. In addition to this, the South was left devastated with not only destroyed towns, but a fragmented economy and uprooted value system of which they would not recover from until the 20th century. Out of Reconstruction came positive milestones, such as the 14th and 15th Amendments, which secured citizenship and suffrage for African Americans. However, along with these new positively viewed consequences came the emergence of violence, as can be seen in the Ku Klux Klan, the emergence of scandals, and the emergence of the Jim Crow laws, which severely limited equality for African Americans. The period of Reconstruction soon came to an end as circumstances settled and the focus shifted to other matters besides reform.